she's like, we're going across the hall. And I thought, oh no, they're going to end up coding me because that's trauma, and I worked there, so I know what the trauma room's for. And I had nurses on either side trying to put IVs in, and they were all just really sketchy. I'm like, this thing's not going to hold up. And they're giving me shots of Benadryl and shots of steroids and more epinephrine and more epinephrine. By the time my husband got there, he walked in and I'm sitting straight up in the bed looking up and just, tears because I couldn't breathe. And he gets the doctor. He's like, you got to do something. She's going to quit breathing. And the doctor's like, oh, no, we've got plenty of time. And I remember hearing that. And then everything kind of started feeling very like I was in a tunnel or something, not like a tunnel of light, but if you've ever passed out, that kind of distant feeling where voices sound far away. And I thought that this is it. And so I quit breathing, fell over, and they called the code. And I was out of my body at that point, looking down. And I didn't recognize me. And I thought, oh, man, she's in rough shape. She's the one that's coding. I hope she does okay. And I saw everybody run in, and kind of as they were running in, my husband was being pushed out of the room. And that's it. I didn't wake up. So they induced a coma and put me on the ventilator, put me on a life flight to Lexington, drilled an IV into my shin, which I didn't know could be done. Funny, it's a nurse, you'd think I'd know that. But yeah, they've got like a little Dremel, and they just screw that thing right into your shin bone, and they can give you drugs that way. So that was good. So they take me off to Lexington, and I spend, I want to say 5 days in an induced coma before I can come off the ventilator. But in that time, the first thing that happened was I kind of came back to, and I was in my sister's car, and she lived in Wisconsin at the time, and she was driving to get to Kentucky, and it was pouring rain late at night, and I'm like, what is she doing out this late? The weather's terrible. I wonder if something's happened to the kids. And so she pulls over at this gas station underneath this canopy, and she puts her hand in her purse and pulls out her phone. And so I lean over, and her clothes are wrinkled and mismatched, and I'm like, did she get dressed in the dark? What is going on here, So she pulls out her phone and she types in, hang on, kiddo, I'm coming, which was kind of interesting because I saw that after I came out of the coma and, had a confirmation of it. Then, I saw that, and then I was back in this dark place. So I'm in this place and it's dark. Like a lot of people haven't really experienced complete darkness, but it was completely dark. And I couldn't determine how big it was, how small it was, because it was so dark. But I had an image of me there somehow. I couldn't figure out what was holding me. And I try to move and I can't move, and it feels like something's holding me down, and it feels like I'm really having to struggle to breathe. And I'm super claustrophobic, so that totally freaked me out. And I had this panic attack, and then I called it the deep sleep. The deep sleep would just come and take over, and then I would be asleep and I'd wake up, and this goes on for, I always tell people, if I had to give it a time, what it felt like compared to time here, because time there is so different, it was about 10 years. And I keep going in and out, and what am I doing here? What is this place? Have I died? Did I ever exist? And it went on for so long that I started to question if I'd ever really existed. I thought maybe I've been here so long, maybe something terrible happened, and I was cast away to this place, and I've just made up that whole life just to have something to think about and cling to. And why is no one looking for me? And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And something tells me, or I get this inclination to lean forward. And so when I say lean forward, I don't mean at the waist, I mean lean forward like this. And when I did it, all of me went like that, like a plank. The direction that I was pointed in, I could move that direction. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can move. This is incredible. And so I saw a light way off on the left, and I thought, okay, I'll go that way. So I turned my body, and I'm now flying crazy fast that direction. And you can't see anything. It's super dark. And I'm thinking, man, I hope I'm in an open space, or I'm going to run right into something. So I get to that light section. It's kind of like a barrier, and there's something on the other side. And so I just kind of kept staring and kept staring. And eventually it got clear, and I could see me laying in a hospital bed on the other side. And my daughter was there, and she was standing to my right, but kind of behind me in front of the ventilator. I remember looking at her shirt, and for some reason I knew it was summer. I had that in my head, and I thought, why is she wearing a flannel shirt in the summer? She's so funny that way. And I looked at from where I was, which I would say felt like, maybe 30 feet away, I could see the fabric on that shirt, and I knew what it would feel like. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird. And I knew what she was thinking, which was weird because I never know what she's thinking. She's a very private person. I started kind of surveying the room. I could see that I was in soft restraints so that I couldn't move my hands. I looked to see what drugs I was on, and I looked at my vital signs, and I'm like, okay, I'm critical but stable. I'm in a coma because I know what those drugs are used for. And apparently I'm just in a coma or something. And I'll wake up and I'll be all back together again. And I thought, well, this is great. Hopefully I survive and I can get back in, or I die and things get straightened out over here so I'm not stuck in this dark place. And I kind of refocused and was looking at my daughter, and I could feel her feelings and hear her thoughts. and she was scared. And she's like the most stoic person I've ever met. And it just broke my heart that she was scared because it's not anything she would ever even tell me, you know? And so I put my hands out to grab her and pull her to me and hug her. And my hands hit the wall and I just lost it. I don't know what's going on here. I was sure that, you know, it had something to do with God. And I was like, what are you doing? You know, why would you torment me like this? You know, what have I done that's earned me this? And I just was so frustrated and enraged, and I got sucked back into the darkness. And so I wake up again and I'm like, okay, you know how to move now, let's go. So I go back toward the left, I get to the light and the barrier, instead of being hard, this time is more like a bubble. And so I put my hand to touch it and my hand went through, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And so I put my other hand through and I'm like, okay, can I just pop in over there? And I did. I just went right through, and I was over me. And I was looking down at the bed and I made it over. Like, what do I do now? Do I like lay down on top of me and will I get sucked back in? And then I'll wake up and everything will be okay? Or I wasn't sure what to, you don't get instructions or anything. It's crazy. And so I was staring at the me in the bed and I was trying to get her to open her eyes. And I'm like, come on, you know, open your eyes. And I'm just trying to will it and it's not happening. And so I'm getting mad. And I thought, okay, now calm down. You don't want to get mad and get sucked back. And it's too big. Let's just get her to move her finger. You know, that would be something. I'm looking at my finger in the bed and I'm like, come on, move your finger, damn it, she won't move her finger, you know? And it's the most frustrating thing I've ever done. And so I got sucked back, but just onto the other side of the wall. I didn't get sucked all the way back. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, this can't be accidental. I must be here for a reason. There's got to be something I'm supposed to figure out or learn. How did I get in this place? And just kind of like from my spirit, it comes out, you made this place. I wasn't even shocked by it. I heard it and I'm like, that's true, I did. So when I was on this side, after my divorce, I had just kind of closed myself off because I'd been so hurt by that, and more so hurt about the abandonment of the kids. You know, that just broke my heart. And I thought, you know, I'm never going to get into another relationship. And people, like, I enjoyed working and had friends at work. I didn't socialize with anybody outside of work. I have social anxiety anyway. And so like I would get really stressed at answering the phone and it was just getting worse and worse. And so I had just completely kind of built this wall around myself to protect me from ever being hurt again. And, you know, the things that you build up here are stored up in heaven and you have to deal with them, whether they're good or bad, you know? And so that's what this was. This was this physical manifestation of this isolation, the jail that I had built, imprisoned myself in, thinking I was somehow safe. Maybe I was safe, but I wasn't living. And so when I realized that, there was this crack, and then where the crack happened, light started coming through. And I was over the moon. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out of this. This is great. And so this whole thing is cracking open almost like an egg. And this big, big, bright spirit starts coming toward me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's other people or things or whatever here. I'm not alone, you know? And so this spirit, who's female, comes to me, and she's just huge. She's huge. She's grand, you know, not just big in size. She puts her arms out and I'm immediately drawn into her arms without her touching me. And she's holding me to her chest, and the darkness is breaking apart in shards. And she's got this like whirlwind of energy that's going around us. And as the shards would come and hit her energy, they would be flung off and then they would be gone. They couldn't fly around anymore. They disappeared. And so she was like, just with her energy, casting away the darkness, and it just was getting brighter and brighter. And I'm crying, like ugly crying. I mean, I was just overwhelmed that there was somebody there. And I didn't initially know who she was. And so I'm freaking out. And she says, calm yourself, dear one, just in her mind. And I hear it in my mind. I always tell people, if you've ever had surgery, when they start giving you that drug to put you to sleep, you can't fight it, but you feel it course through you. And that's what it was like. It was like her words broke down and coursed through my body and caused exactly what she wanted to have happen to happen. And so then I was calm and I thought, okay, who is she? She's so familiar. And so I look up and she's got these brilliant green eyes, and I look up further, and then on the top of her head, it looks like flames, and it's this orange red hair. And I knew who she was. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my grandma. It was amazing to see her on that side, because she died when I was 9 or 10. And so I looked at her and I'm like, you're alive. And she's like, well, of course I'm alive. And she's like, there's no death. You know this, you learned this. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, yes, you learned this when you were really little. Remember, she says, energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes forms. That's God's law borrowed by man. And I was like, of course, that makes perfect sense. I'd always been a believer, and I had believed in God and was hoping there was heaven. You know, we're all hoping for that, but I didn't feel like I had any real assurance of it. And there she was giving me this assurance based on science, you know, that you do go on, and we can't extinguish your light. It has to become something else. And she was just so comforting to me, and she was holding me, and just very, very sweet. And I kind of got lost in that. And when I came back to myself, I realized I was alone and I was just floating in the light, you know, just was enjoying it. It was really nice. And then all of a sudden, everything shook. It was more like an earthquake from the beginning of time to the end of time. Like things that didn't even exist yet were shaking. It was crazy. I could feel it all the way to my middle. And I knew it was God. And so I immediately tried to start thinking of good things that I had done, because I'm like, he can read my mind. You know, pull something good up to the front, because I don't know, you know, I mean, there's been some bad and I don't want him to lead with that. And I couldn't think of anything. I've been a nurse. I mean, I could have thought of a million things, but I was stumped. And all of a sudden, there's this light, and it's much brighter than the light that I'm in. And it gets closer and closer. And he says, I am. And I had heard that a million times, you know, the great I am, all these different things. And I never really understood it. But, you know, he was making this declaration that the creator of everything was here. And I really understood it in that moment when he said that, you know, I am. I'm the one who made you. I'm the creator of everything. You know, everything exists as I will it so. And it was just crazy. And so I'm still trying to think of good things. I got nothing. And so I get this sense that we're going to look at my life. And he starts with good, which I appreciated. And he shows this situation where I'm at a store and the lady in front of me doesn't have enough to pay for her groceries, just cents. And she's trying to figure out what to put back. And I remember how that got me in my gut, because I had been that single mom for years. And, you know, you always put back the thing that you need, not the thing that your kid would enjoy. And so she's like, well, you know, and you can see her putting back like moisturizer, and you know, she's not going to put the kids' mac and cheese back. And I'm like, oh, I'm so in there. And so I fish in my purse and I get what she's short, and I hand it to her, and she doesn't want to take it. And she's just super embarrassed. And I'm like, it's okay. I've been there. Take it. You know, don't put anything back. And it just broke my heart for her. And he showed me that situation played out years ahead. And she's working as a volunteer in this food pantry, and this woman comes in and doesn't have enough food, and she's humiliated and embarrassed. And she's like, it's okay. I've been there, you know. She packs up this lady's groceries. And I thought, wow, I never thought of that far forward. I thought it was a nice thing to do that day, but I didn't think it would impact her or anyone else. I mean, I'd done some really much bigger things, and I was thinking, I was kind of a little put out by that. I'm like, wow, I did this huge nothing. You want to talk about that incredible thing I did, you know, not just this, but it was that thing that explained to me that what your purpose is in the moment that you're in. It's not some huge, big, grand thing. Everybody's trying to figure out, where are you right now? Who can you help? And that was the importance, that I didn't ignore that. And so then he shows me the bad. And it was this woman that I worked with who was terrible. If you were a patient, you didn't want that nurse. If you were working a hall, you didn't want to work it with her. And she just was it just didn't feel like she was very attentive to her patients. I was always answering her call lights and her IV alarms. And I never said anything negative to her, never talked about her, because I hate gossip. But in my heart, I was holding this, you know, over her. And God flashed back and showed me her whole life, and showed me the things that her dad had done to her for years. And I mean, it was amazing that she wasn't a psychopath. And here, having been used in her whole life, what does she decide to dedicate her career to? Helping other people. And I'm like, is she doing a great job? No, but I mean, considering where she came from, she's doing great. And God's like, you have to control your thoughts. You're having all these negative thoughts about her, and that has energy, and you're putting it on her, and you're making it harder for her to be who I intended her to be. You're chaining her. And I felt so bad. I thought I was doing so well by not speaking those things and not gossiping and not being hateful to people. But if you're walking around harboring it, you're injuring them just the same. And he's like, you know, you have to look for the good in her and capitalize on that. And then I felt so bad that I hadn't done that, because I had such an opportunity to do it.